Scene 143, take 6. Action. Delta, take 1.
No, that.
Oh.
Yeah.
So today I'm going to focus on the behind the scenes of my latest short film, On Earth in Mind. I'm going to be going through the pre-production, the production, and the post-production. So my pre-production for this film started all the way back in May 2018. I was still polishing the script and I was getting feedback from friends so that I can kind of hash out little details before really finishing the script. I had to kind of conform the script to what I had available. So I started off with some sort of bigger, ambitious ideas, and then I had to kind of water it down a little bit based on the areas that I had available to me. So off the bat, I considered it to be a very ambitious idea, not the script itself, but how I approach it. I didn't want to do another one-man band super short film where I'm doing like everything except for acting. I really wanted to take this opportunity to grow and develop as a filmmaker and kind of focus on being a director over everything else. So I wanted a decent crew to work with this production.
Tiffany, we're going to throw in another shot
Okay.
to get close up of him opening.
I took a couple of trips downtown in Birmingham, mostly in areas that I was familiar with, and I really wanted to use the opportunity to visualize, to see how the film kind of plays out geographically and physically in these areas. I used this time to look at where the sun would be for each of these scenes to kind of figure out the best time of day for each shot. And I used that with the help of a Sun Surveyor app. I also had to figure out what I needed to avoid in each of these scenes, especially with the rotary trail. I knew that it would be a familiar territory, so I wanted to avoid certain imagery in each of these scenes that would make it so ambiguous that even a local Birmingham resident can't tell where these are being shot. I spent 20 minutes at the rotary trail for scene 2 trying to figure out which of the bridge areas I wanted to use for that scene, and I did all of that just to cut out the scene entirely. I'll get into that later. So with these 2 days that I spent location scouting, I really got a more rounded idea of what this film could look like, how it could turn out, and I used the opportunity to polish the script even more to justify and determine how and why this character would move from one location to the next. So my process with shot listing is relatively unique in that at first I visualize the scenes kind of off to myself, which the location scouting helped a lot with. Then I'll take the script and start hashing out each of the shots for each chunk, detailing the camera angles, who's involved. I will color code it because I'm huge about color coding everything. And then once everything makes sense on that side, I'll transfer that into an Excel spreadsheet, so I can have a neater, nicer looking layout of all the shots, and I can further detail everything I'll need as far as like props and whatnot. For this project, I wanted to use Studio Binder. I dabbled with it a little bit and I really liked it, but I couldn't afford it, so I I just went with the Excel spreadsheet route, since that's what I'm used to doing. But I know eventually I want to move up and work a little more professionally. So after that, I'll create a new version of that shot list, and that'll be my shoot schedule. I will reorder it based on who I need, where it's being filmed, and then the importance or complication of the shot. So if I'm doing a lot of different camera angles, or I know that this film does not work with this shot, it's like a master shot or a very detailed shot, I'm going to focus on those first, and then I'll have some sort of B-roll shots, so to say, the angles that don't matter but they help contribute. They're more like fluff, just putting that little bit of icing on the cake. I'll put that at the very end of that day or at the very end of the production schedule, especially if it's B-roll where it doesn't involve anybody. I don't even bother putting a time or a day to film it, because I know that I'll have the freedom to just go downtown and film whenever and for however long that I want. I had met the main actor, David Orange, at an acting class, and then I talked to him later on about acting for this film, because when I first saw him, immediately he seemed like he seemed to fit the idea that I had for this character, for this homeless person. Not that he looked homeless, but I knew that he can fulfill that role properly, and I was really blessed to have found him, because with these micro short films, we only have one main character. As far as acting, that focus should, the person who is doing that role is carrying most of the weight as far as the visual and the story and how it gets presented to the audience. So I was really lucky and blessed to have found him and brought him onto the project. And as far as the extras and the crew members, I found everybody through a Facebook group called Alabama Filmmakers. I've been somewhat involved on that, and it was really helpful in quickly finding people to fill each role. Now, one thing that I knew from experience working in smaller productions, when you're recruiting for a almost no budget, no pay, volunteer film, you're more than likely to get maybe half of who you need. So with that in mind, I was prepared to do more than I wanted to do, but all these things I was already used to doing. Another ambitious goal that I had for this project was the rental equipment. I wanted, in another aspect of this project, to kind of level up in my filmmaking skills and experience. I did that not in the mindset of making the film better, but making myself better as a filmmaker. The quality of the film, although it does have a level of importance to me, it wasn't the main idea for taking that route, for putting the money into renting equipment, even though I had everything that I needed to function myself. So I rented the equipment because, one, I wanted to make my job easier. When digging a hole, you can use a spoon or you can use a shovel. Now, both of those things will dig that hole, but obviously the shovel is going to make your life a whole lot easier. So with the equipment that I was renting out, I wanted certain aspects of the production itself to move a little more smoothly, so that I wouldn't run into as many issues or take as long getting an alternative approach set up to get the job done. And B, like I said before, I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to learn how to work with more than just a DSLR on set. So I've done a handful of videos with my Canon SL1, but I wanted to take the opportunity to really understand how to work with the Canon C100 Mark II. I was really excited for that because I want to get one myself, and I wanted to understand how what all it takes to work with a bigger camera on set. In that step, I also acquired a DP to run the camera. She rented out her equipment to me. She also was the DP for the project. So it was a double challenge in that not only working with the camera equipment, but also for the first time having to really communicate with somebody else my vision for how the project should look, how each shot should look. And it was a big challenge for me.
Yeah, so right here with the sun is really nice and blinding. Right here, walking, and then the bridge cuts off the sun, and then we tilt down, and we'll see this space, but of course we gotta avoid all these cars, and then we'll have David walk into the frame.
At the climax of the film was an encounter with the dog, and this was one of the aspects of the film where very early on in the script was a very ambitious idea for me because I've never worked with animals on set, did not know how to approach it or anything, so I was just rolling the dice with it basically. But I wanted to keep it, so I pursued. I looked on Alabama Filmmakers and was very blessed to find Clint and Simone from the Dog Coach, and through conversation and some collaboration, they were set to bring on Cole, a well-trained German Shepherd. So for next week's video, we're going to dive into how all of these things work in production, expectation versus reality.